everybody. Welcome back to the Latched Mama podcast. It is Tuesday. I know that because I just pulled Taco Tuesday stuff out of the refrigerator. We are coming to you from outside of Richmond, Virginia. It's a cold and rainy day. And we're going to just talk a little bit today. Lindy's here. For those of you who don't know, Lindy's our head designer here at Latched Mama, kind of my pandemic buddy through this. We're going to talk a little bit about shame and mom shame and what it feels like and what it looks like and how we can maybe do better as a community and kind of friendship circles and stuff like that. So hope you enjoy it. You're listening to the Latched Mama podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, business owner and tired mom of 5. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, nursing, parenting, and all things motherhood. Hi. When I get to sit and talk with you, like I love all of my podcast guests, but this is like having a cup of tea and talking to a friend. So thank you, which is basically what it is. But so yeah, Lindi and we're a little different. We're super introverted, but we're on this kind of like COVID journey with big families together, running a company. Lindi holds a lot of my heavy company stuff for me, and she shows up every day, and it's been really, really nice. But we've come across some things recently, and we're kind of trying to dig deep a little bit into it and learn, and we wanted to kind of pass things over to you guys a little bit and talk about kind of the catalyst for kind of why we want to talk about what we do now. I mean, I think mom shame in general is part of motherhood from the day you get pregnant, like even like what kind of pregnancy test you use to find out if you're pregnant. I mean, it's like from that point on, and do you test once or do you test multiple times, and you know what your care provider looks like. So I mean, I think from the very beginning there's a certain competitive aspect of motherhood. You agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
But suddenly, you know, I'm running this online community of hundreds of thousands of moms, and I'm in it every single day, and I'm watching people talk to each other, and I'm watching people listen for the most part, but it breaks my heart more than it probably makes me happy at this point, just in our ability to not be kind to each other. You know, for some people who have studied any sort of or have dug in anything to kind of growth and human connection and stuff, you know, Brene Brown's made this kind of this thing out of vulnerability, which I am 100% on board with. I think that vulnerability is a form of courage, and I think it allows us to connect to one another. It's something that I struggle with a little bit. I think many people do. But Brene's been that type of person who I pulled out her books when I've been building this brand, because it hasn't been easy. Like, I mean, you look at where we were 2 years ago versus where we are now.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's very different, and it's grown, and the community's grown, and the emotional output of keeping employees happy and keeping the community going. But anyways, Brene Brown's books they just live on my nightstand, and I pick them up when I need them. But I was listening to a podcast the other day with her and Dax Shepard and Tim Ferriss, and it was good. It was fine. I was making dinner, had my earpods on. Once again, mom shame, don't judge me. I finally finished work and I went up to the house and I made dinner with my earpods on, but the kids were all happy. They were fine. I just needed a few minutes. But I was listening to this podcast, and there was this point where Dax was explaining to Tim, who, for those of you who don't know, Tim Ferriss is 30-hour work week. Kennedy, help me out here. Do you know Tim Ferriss? I feel like he'd be somebody that you would follow a little bit. Anyways, he's written a whole bunch of books. Good guy, entrepreneur, probably, I'm sure, venture capitalist at this point. Dax Shepard is married to Kristen Bell, which literally I have like zero like fangirl moments. Like there's really nobody that I fangirl. Kristen Bell is like very, very high up there on my list. Did you watch Veronica Mars?
Did I watch what?
Veronica Mars?
Not much though. But
okay, that needs to be. Lindy's almost through Homeland, right? Almost through Homeland, and now then you've got to flip to Veronica Mars.
I'm just into season 7.
I'm gonna make you flip to Veronica Mars when you're done. But anyways, okay. Kristen Bell's amazing. So anyways, they were all talking, and I promise you, there's a point here. And Dax is talking about fatherhood and parenthood and how it was like this wonderful decision that he made in life. And they were talking to Tim about the fact that like, it's hard, but you know, you should go for it and you should do it. And there's this moment in the podcast, and Lindy's probably going to laugh at me because I brought it up so many times because it just doesn't sit right with me, where Dax starts talking about downward comparing, which is when you know, instead of looking upward and like keeping up with the Joneses, you look downward. And there's this kind of like maniacal laugh that comes from Brene. And, you know, I'm not absolutely judging the moment at all, but I mean, maybe I am a little bit, but there was no other time in the podcast that like there was like laughter. There was like this like kind of background stuff, and she could tell where Dax was going with it. And Dax said, you know, even on your worst day, go to the supermarket, and I can promise you that there's somebody doing it worse than you. And it just hit me. And then Brene's like, yeah. And I'm like, hold on, no, wait. This is this person, this quote unquote, like through books mentor of mine that I have just concentrated so much on creating a community that doesn't embrace shaming and that doesn't embrace comparison. And like all of a sudden when they made that comment as a mom myself, I'm like, hold on, I've been that mom. I've been that mom at the grocery store with kids that don't have socks on, or they don't have jackets on, or they're running around, or they're eating an apple in the cart that I haven't paid for because it's literally just the way I'm going to get through the grocery trip.
Right.
And I'm like, hold on, wait. Like that's shame. Like that is literally somebody going into a situation and looking at somebody else and saying, you're struggling. And I love that you're struggling because I'm doing it better than you and it makes me feel better. And there was something just about a shame researcher doing that said, like, what's wrong with motherhood? Like, why is it just accepted in motherhood and parenthood that, like, it's okay to say something like that? I'm 100% sure if it had been flipped and you said, hey, I went into an AA meeting and it makes me feel so much better because there's people sitting around in a circle that are struggling more than me. Like, that's terrible, but it's basically saying the same thing. You know, like, I mean, and... Lindy probably doesn't have a whole lot to say because I've been on this like I don't understand it. Like I don't.
But there's the difference. If it's an AA meeting or a group counseling or something, you're in there doing it together. Like you're learning together. You may be struggling and you're struggling together.
Why aren't we together in motherhood? Like why are we not together in motherhood? Why is it constantly like, you know,
it's those things that constantly create a divide.
Absolutely, because there are so many
and
decisions.
we have enough divides today.
Like, I mean, think about like on a normal morning, how many decisions do you make between like 6:30 a.m. when my feet hit the floor and 7:30 a.m.? I mean, there are a million ways. Do you get out of bed? Do you drink coffee? Is coffee good for you? Is, you know, if you're breastfeeding, is that going to affect your baby? Like, what do you make for breakfast? Does it have too much sugar? What are your kids going to wear? Do they have organic diapers? Like, I mean, holy moly, like the amount of choices there are to make. And every single one of those choices, you can find somebody who is doing it better, who's doing it differently. And I don't know where we go as a group. And I love that thought of, instead of dividing, figuring out a way to come together and respect the fact that everybody's going to make different decisions.
Well, and the other thing that pops in my mind too is this whole like better.
Yeah.
Like, well, what is it? Can we define like good or define better just because you can afford this fancy brand and I can only afford like the Walmart brand? Like neither one is better, but like look what it can kind of create in people's minds. Like,
and it's interesting, like we created this Facebook group kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. One of the best things from a business perspective we've ever done, and we don't talk too much business on here, but like it's been very, very good to get insight on what our customers want. They've been able to interact with us and talk to us. But it has given me such an amazing insight into what is happening in motherhood. And within probably 2 to 3 months of releasing the group and opening the group, Facebook reached out to us and they said, hey, we have this new beta thing and we see that you have a motherhood group and we want you to test it because we know moms aren't nice to each other. And so basically what they were allowing our group to do is post anonymously. So within the group, if somebody had something that they felt was controversial, they could post it anonymously. So nobody else in the group knew that they were asking for sleep training tips or asking like how long it was okay to breastfeed or asking about like if it was okay that they were only having sex once a week. Like, I mean, the questions that come through from a place of shame Because I mean, that's where it comes from. Like, it comes from the idea that, hey, if I post this with my name on it, I'm going to get shamed.
And you know what's sad is because I've seen some of those questions, you know, and I'll read through and I'm like, this is like a normal question. And I'm thinking, why do we need to post this anonymously?
Absolutely.
And that's what's so sad is I understand that there are some that could become very controversial topics, but there are some that I'm like, there should be no reason.
Yeah.
And maybe it's their choice, but that's like what's been created.
You're how many years into motherhood though? Like you found your way, you found your voice.
I'm trying, but you know, we're all a mess, but yeah, it hurts. It hurts to know that maybe this mom at home in this time with the pandemic, maybe she doesn't have a face-to-face and this is her only option to find support, that she has to do it in hiding.
Yeah. And she has to do it with so much shame, or like, where in this process, where in motherhood has she gotten hurt? Where has she gotten shamed? Where, I use the grocery store example in the podcast, but most of the time it's online at this point. I mean, that's where we're all hanging out, and that's where kind of we're all interacting. And I think it's probably easier to shame somebody online.
Oh,
but it's so crazy because it's not always. I can see how it's not always on purpose. It's people, expressing their opinions without really thinking about what happens on the other side of it, or how that other person's feeling, or how their comments could be misconstrued. But to watch a conversation go south, and we know at this point, like when we approve posts, because we approve every post in the group, we know which ones can go south, but it's sometimes the ones that never in a million years did I think that they were gonna get angry and they were gonna get mean and somebody was gonna get hurt. And it's just I don't understand it. Like, and I don't understand where it comes from. And I mean, it's almost like it's allowed here, and I'm sure that there's shame happening in other communities everywhere. But it's almost like motherhood is like I mean, Facebook knew, hey, you know what? You run a mothering group, so you know what? We know there's a lot of shame in motherhood, but like, how do you fix it?
I don't know. And maybe this is a little not off topic, but it's one thing that I feel if motherhood's given me anything, and like going through it, it's one thing that I've learned. And I've seen these posts that people are like, I have a friend, she's pregnant. I'd love to tell me, like, what is the best kind of advice I can give her? And my first thought is, did she ask you for advice? Did she ask? Because everyone is so quick to give their opinion, their whatever. And I'm kind of like, have you met her where she's at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have they reached out and asked you? Because if they haven't asked you for help, really the only thing that really you can give them and that's needed is support in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I see this and, this person's telling them this. Oh, no, you need this thing. Oh, no, you need that. And then it's so overwhelming. Yep. And then they're like, oh my gosh, am I doing it wrong? Like, I really should be buying this thing. And if I don't buy this thing, I'm not a good mom. Yeah. And I'm like,
but it's so crazy to think about, like, so you have so many options before motherhood happens, and then motherhood happens, and it's like your support goes away, and like those people who were there that gave you advice, like, who do you like, what advice is right, and do you find, like, how do you find your way? And it's just this really, really super overwhelming time. And when you take the support out of it and all that you're really getting is opinions, or you go online and somebody's doing it better, or maybe somebody's just doing it differently, but all of a sudden you're like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing this better? Like, is that a better resource? And what happens, just like what you said, what happens if you don't have the resources to do it like somebody else?
That has nothing to do with good or better.
Yeah,
right? But that's where we go as moms.
Absolutely.
Instead of just different, that's right for her family, this is right for mine.
Yep.
We begin to just contemplate, like, I'm doing it wrong, and I'm not giving them the best life, and I'm not giving them the best stuff. And
we recently, Lindi and I were talking about this a second ago. My family, we recently moved from planned community. We were like the fun house in the neighborhood. I constantly had, like, my 5 and then 3 more, sometimes 4 more, 5 more kids over. And I parented very differently than now how I parent on this, farm, where my kids get to be my kids, and my kids get to be who they are. And in return, I get to parent them the way that they need to be parented. So, like, if they need to be emotional, or let's say they need me and they just want to snuggle. Like my 7-year-old will come and sit and snuggle with me. Never happened before, but that's what he needs. And it's been a really cool kind of look at our family in the sense that, you know, they all have little needs, but we have needs as parents, and we need to figure out how to get to the point where we know that we know our kids, you know, and like, it doesn't matter. I was telling Lindi a story earlier, like my kids are homeschooled. I've been homeschooled since prior to the pandemic. And my son, since he was 7, he's almost 9, has gone to this outdoor forest school. It's 1 day a week throughout the year. It's an incredible place, but they taught him knife safety skills. So he's had a fixed blade knife since he was 7 years old, and he knows the rules. He's more careful with that knife than he's careful with anything else, and he knows how it gets taken away from him. And for a long time, he wasn't allowed to use it at 7 by himself. But now he's almost 9. We live on a farm. He makes shelter. He goes outside. Like, it's his thing, and it's what he does. And I'm 100% comfortable with him going outside with his knife and going and creating. If I was in a neighborhood still, that knife would be locked away and it would be taken away from him. He wouldn't be allowed to go outside because I would be afraid that like the cops would come, CPS, somebody would turn me in for my kid having a fixed blade knife. But I know as a parent that that's important to him. It's just as important as multiplication tables because he's learned it. So like by me taking it away and locking it down where we used to live, there was a little bit of confusion for him and a certain kind of amount that he just didn't understand. Whereas here he has it. I feel confident as a parent that I'm making the right decision. I'm sure if I posted that online, I would get freaking railed by like 90% of any mom's group that I put that in. So it's like finding that balance between finding your voice and finding what feels good to you as a mom, because you know your kids and like you know you, versus what social media is telling you that you should be.
Yeah.
And like, how do we get there other than everybody moving to a farm, which I understand is 100% not, you know.
But like we were talking a little bit earlier about just maybe how we've gotten here. Like, how do we get very hurt at anything said, or what was it like back then? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, are we just that?
Yeah.
And I know this, like, mental health and whatnot is huge right now. And just kind of how do we got this point where you have to be so careful about holding that back, like you said, in a neighborhood where really like you should be able to do and not be judged what is okay for your family. And we have to be so careful about what we say and what we do. And it's hard.
Yeah. Like I posted a picture when we recently moved here, and like my 3-year-old was leaning over. We have a little pond with a dock, and he was leaning over. He had a puddle jumper on, but then the 3 older kids were in a canoe in the pond. And we're talking like super, like kind of small pond. The entire pond you can stand in. And the 3 that were in the kayak, or 3 that were in the canoe, all can swim efficient, like great. And I posted the picture on Facebook, like on my personal page. And the amount of like, and it's all out of care and it's all out of love. It wasn't like moms posting it, but it was family members. Where are the life jackets? Why don't your kids have life jackets on? Where I was 100% in control as a mother at that point. Like I would never put my kids in safety, in jeopardy. But it's like that moment that somebody plants that seed, you start doubting, well, maybe they should have had life jackets on. Maybe I should have thought through this more. But me at this point in motherhood, I'm like, well, it just shows I'm just not going to post on social media anymore, because I was super confident in my parenting decisions at that moment. And now you slowly have me questioning whether I was putting my kids, like, you know, lives at risk. I don't know. Like your kids are pretty free reign. Like they run around the neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. I remember when we lived on the other side, our house, my kids would pull the kids out of their homes. So I know when we left, I know several of them said it's like a ghost town. Like I don't see kids anymore. But mine were the ones, you know, making the forts in the front yard. And we would have like, you know, 11, 12 kids over there on Friday, and I would end up doubling the pizza order because, you know, kids would just eat there. And so at our neighborhood, we're backed up to a cul-de-sac. So I've never seen this, but they go way back in the creek. I think there's like the space where it borders between Harper's Mill and Hampton Park, but I don't know what they do there, but apparently they've built some sort of fort and like stuff, and like they go back there all the time.
You understand if you were to post that on the neighborhood group, social media, anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Because how old are the kids that are going back there?
My kids, I don't know, 7 and up.
Yeah.
My 6-year-old's not allowed back there, but
there are there are threads on social media that like 6-year-olds aren't allowed to leave the driveway.
Yeah.
You know, but it's funny because you post that, and even if you're not the one posting it, if you see it, and then you have other people who comment on it, and it's like, no, my kids don't. It still makes you feel a certain way, even if you're not the one that initiated the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to think back, like, 'cause I don't post much at all on social media, but like things will pop up on my time hop about random parenting things that I posted, and I'm like, what was I doing? And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like if I posted this today, like what would those comments be versus like 10 years ago, like difference?
And we're just moving.
And why have I slowly stopped posting? And like I really thought about that, and I'm like, but why? Like, and it's because of maybe I've kind of learned that when you do put yourself out there on social media, at least different with like a good friend conversation or something, it's this open space that really you can't control, and you can't control what other people are going to say. And I knew I was weak at certain times, that like if I do put these things out there, what's going to come back on those comments and how it can affect me. So I slowly stopped doing like anything.
But I know you and I both believe this, and I mean, it's a common kind of theme in life, is that like you need community, like you need personal connection, you need community. And if the community right now, especially in time of COVID, is Facebook and it's Instagram and it's all of these places that you're seeing people either living these glorious lives in the middle of just this shit show that has become motherhood for so many people. And you're seeing these comments and these people that are so into their heads sometimes and like so lost and so stuck. And I just want to go hug every single one of them, but we can't at this point. You know, like how do you separate, and how do you is it better to go on and feel shamed, or is it better to just not have community or interaction right now at all?
Yeah.
And like that's,
but let's be real honest. I know there's COVID, but even prior to COVID, it was technology driven. Yep. You lost that kind of, whether there were playgroup aspects or, I mean, that's just the trend that we're going towards. I mean, it wasn't healthy even prior to COVID, like in my opinion. So
what happens? And like we're like, I don't know, flying. Like I feel like in the 5 years,
and it's not going to stop.
Yeah, the 5 years that we've started this company, we are flying headfirst into like this brick wall of literally not being able to make a single decision without having another opinion or being judged. You know, the other thing we want to talk about, we have competitors in the Latch Mama space, and I struggle with one of theirs, like our biggest brand competition and what they strive for. And, you know, it's not hard to figure out who our biggest competition is, but you know, their slogan is be brave. And there are days where I see that and I just want to like tell them, like, you can't make moms be brave every day. I don't want to be brave every day. And I live like the largest life of privilege of, you know, anybody I know at this point. Like I have so much gratitude every single day, and I have so many opportunities at my fingertips, and I am so happy. But honestly, I don't want to be brave every day. Some days I just want to curl up with a cup of tea and a book, and I don't want to show up, and I don't want to show up for anybody. And you know what? That's okay. And I know we're way far off of shame right now, but it's all part of the thing. If you're going on and you're finding these online communities and they're telling you to be brave and they're telling you to love yourself, when you know what? You don't love yourself. Like you're not always going to love yourself. You're not going to look like a lingerie clad model lying on a bed. Like you're going to look like a mom covered in, you know, spit up with Legos all around you and your husband's boxers and, you know, your old cotton t-shirt. Like, but you're supposed to love yourself. And there are going to be days where it's going to be hard as hell to love yourself, you know, especially if you then go and you turn on social media and you see people who are loving themselves or look like that, you know, and it's
Yeah, or Susie Q's looking amazing with her infant at Target, whereas I couldn't even get myself out the door. Like, not physically, but mentally and like emotionally. And well, now all of a sudden I'm failing because I can't. Yeah.
But I feel like if you have a Brene Brown laughing about it, and you have Facebook letting you just have this thing because we've all accepted that the mom space is, you know, what it is, like, how do you change it? Like, how do we go as a brand and as a community? And, you know, the whole point of Latched Mama since day one has not been the clothes. I mean, although Lindi has made gorgeous clothes at this point, it hasn't been about the clothes. It's literally been the clothes have been a revenue stream to create community and to support moms. And still to this day, I mean, the revenue is great and it's fantastic, but we're always searching for those ways to connect, and we're always searching for those ways to make sure that moms feel heard. And this was just such an important podcast for us to do today, because I feel like everywhere I turn, it's just accepted, and there's no change in it. And if we just accept it, we're just going to keep going, barreling down a wall of just not supporting our moms and not finding what they need, you know?
I think I see on social media, we're so obsessed with other people's lives. We're so into this and, what she's doing and what she's doing. And then we put that on us and what we should be doing. And, you know, if we're all going to be like real honest. So like, let's dive into like our therapy stuff. Right. And I feel like the most eye-opening thing from that book, that Dance of Anger, right?
I got Lindi a book.
It's fantastic. So I keep reading this, and these people stuck in these.
Hold on. This is what we do all day. Lindi and I talk about our problems, and
because we got problems. We all have problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Don't trust that little like filtered photo, and I don't trust any of those filters.
I can't even filter mine to look good at this point. I'm too much.
Okay, so the thing in this book, and it's like.
All right, you got to talk about the book. It's Dance of Anger.
It's so good.
By, like, I don't know. It's
I don't even know. It's called The Dance of Anger.
It's about how women interpret anger and how I didn't get
literally all about communication and like. But anyway,
Lindi has devoured it.
I'm like halfway through it. So what I'm trying to just get at is you're in this and you want change, but most of the time these people come, whether it's couples or whatever, and they're like, it's them. There's this blame. Yeah. That's what I want to change. That's going to solve all my problems. And it's not.
Yeah.
So I feel like when we look at this whole social media mom thing, we're always concerned about like, what Susie did and whatever did. And it makes me feel bad. And I really just feel like if people would sit down and work on themselves and work on how to communicate with other humans, like we really could help each other. Whether that's journaling, so like we dive into some sort of journal to help moms, but if people really took the time instead of hopping on social media and seeing what everybody else is doing, why don't you take that time to work on yourself?
Absolutely.
Because honestly, that's the only thing you can control out there.
Absolutely.
You cannot control anything else on Facebook. And I think it would give you so much more, at least what I'm feeling in like the last week, just more confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, power can be kind of a weird word, but like that's, I feel like where you feel is when you kind of take back yourself. And I feel like a healthier self, what you can give to these other moms in your circle or not even in your circle.
But you can't relaunch yourself back in that space until you know what you want, until you're confident. And that's the thing. It's like a slippery slope. Like you can step back and you can journal for a few days and you can take these like Facebook breaks, which I think are a little crazy.
Yeah.
And then, but if you haven't trained your body and you haven't trained your mind to be confident in who you are and the decisions you're making for yourself and your family, you're going to get sucked right back into it.
Yeah. And I don't say that like it's this easy thing to do. I'm sitting here as a mom with an almost 13-year-old. So I felt for 9 years, it got worse and worse and worse, and I was completely lost. So I sit here like finally trying to figure out who I am for the last like 2 years. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is not an easy thing to do. I'm not saying like, go be brave and feel confident. 100%. I'm not saying that.
No, don't say
at
that.
all. I'm not. But I think it's just turning that focus instead of on everybody else and what they're doing, on looking at you and what you need and what your kids need. And it doesn't need to be influenced by anybody else.
And we're talking like like my youngest at this point is 15 months old. So we're not talking about those of you that are in the trenches that are like newborn life, can't pick your head up and like, you just survive right now. No. But when it comes to the point where you're ready to acclimate and it comes to the point where you're ready to build that community, you really, really need to figure out what that means to you, and figure out what those choices are that you've made and why you've made them. Because I feel like unless you know that, you're going to get steamrolled and it's going to suck and it's going to probably hurt and you're going to feel not good enough.
Well, it's going to like go right back to like a bad high school experience. Like when you're so vulnerable and you don't know who you are and you don't know where you stand, you grasp.
Mm-hmm. Really? Thanks, Lindi. But no, well, I mean
that's not. I mean,
but okay. No, I mean it's true though, because then I
mean, I did it. I think most teens are searching for who they are, but they're teenagers. Like, they're not going to sit down and actually figure it out, or it's difficult. It's
finding the resources.
It's just a very vulnerable place.
And it's so hard because look, when you're trying to find the resources on how to parent your kid and you have that like weight of, am I doing it right on your shoulders? The hardest thing at that point to do is take a step back and say, you know what, I'm not going to worry about that today. I'm going to worry about myself and I'm going to worry about feeling confident in my decisions. Nobody does that. Like it took me literally moving to the middle of nowhere during COVID where I didn't see another human being to finally sit back and be like, okay, well, let's dig in. Let's figure this out. So,
and what is right and wrong in parenting? Like I just feel like we're all navigating that. And I'm sure there's some very distinct borders and boundaries as far as right and wrong. But for the most part,
like I really wish we could record our 10 o'clock meeting every morning where like all of us come together and like we're running a company. And the way Latch Mama works is like we have professionals, but you know, we're kind of all just flying and we're all just listening to you guys and trying to figure out what you all want, and we're all just trying to get through it together. But we had like this funny
corporate does not fit.
We had this funny brainstorming session on like kind of what we wanted to talk about and like what shame and motherhood kind of meant to everybody else. But everybody just started launching into like what their kids had eaten over the weekend and how many people just like took meals off and like just sat around and just let their kids fend for themselves and like what that ended up looking like. I think somebody's 7-year-old had like Doritos and chocolate chips for a meal. And, you know, it's just, but I feel like, I don't know what is happening. I say I live in the middle of nowhere, but apparently somebody's trying to knock down a wall right now. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Do we have answers? I mean, what are the answers? I think you did a good job. I mean, it's just
I don't know.
figure out what's important to you and figure out where you put your effort, and then don't compare yourself to others. But it's so damn hard. It's so hard because I'm just sitting here talking about another brand. Like I'm constantly comparing. You constantly compare yourselves to others, but
I think it's looking at those comparisons as more as like differences and not good versus bad or better and worse. You know what I'm saying? Better or worse.
Yep,
like
absolutely. But it comes back and I don't know why, but I can't get that part of that podcast out of my mind. And I think it's also because like ours don't go to post-production. Like, I mean, maybe we cut something out here or there. I think
it's Lily.
I think the dog. I think the dog was really sad she's not podcasting with us today. But or it's a very large mouse.
No, it's Lily for sure.
But you know, it's literally the idea that it's okay. And like, it's not okay. Like it's never okay to look at somebody else in motherhood and say, I feel better about myself because they're struggling. Like I want to change it. I want to change the conversation. And I want to instead have that be that person struggling.
Like, hey, I get you.
What can I say to them?
Yes.
What can I look at?
How can I support them? How can I lift them up?
But somehow, because it's motherhood and it's parenthood, it's okay to be judgy. Facebook says it's okay to be judgy. Brene Brown says it's okay to be judgy and shamey.
And I think that hurts. I think it hurts coming from people that you've gotten a lot of help from. And I don't know. I'm sure in that moment you felt like, whoa. Like, yeah, like, hold on.
Like this is my space. Don't you come over into this. Like, I mean, I know she talks about parenthood and stuff and she's incredible, but it's like, don't come over to my space. Like I literally listen to this all day long. Like this is my 350,000 person Facebook group. Like this has been my bread and butter for the last 5 years, personally, as well as professionally. And like, let's not down compare. Let's actually reach out and help somebody. Like let's
But isn't that just like a daily like life thing? I mean, it's a conversation I have with my kids all the time. You have the choice. What comes out of your mouth, you have the choice. You can put down your brother today.
Yeah.
Or you can boost him today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you have the power to do that. So like, we have that power as moms.
But we're talking about somebody who has had Obama on her podcast. She's been on Oprah like 5 times, but suddenly that doesn't get pulled from post-production because it's okay, because it's about parenthood. And it's about this thing that we're all on, that apparently it's okay to compare ourselves. Like it's just wrong. Like we are literally breaking motherhood at this point. Because if you do that, and we all know the maternal health care system is broken, the whole mental health care system in the United States is broken, but if you're literally sending women out to have a baby, not touching them for 6 weeks, and when you do touch them at 6 weeks, you're telling them, oh, it's okay to have sex again, and your vagina's fine. Later. And then you're sending them to the grocery store where Brene Brown apparently says it's okay for other people to look at them and say, ha, you're struggling, I feel better about myself later. Like it's not okay. And we're going to figure out how to change it. One piece of clothing at a time. One nursing hoodie at a time. We are going to change this, and we're going to figure out how. So yeah, thanks for listening to our event and our rants. Believe in yourself. Believe in the choices you're making. Love each other. If you see somebody at the grocery store, walk up to them and tell them they're doing a good job. And I want to hear about it.
Just lift them up.
Report back to us and let's change the communication. All right.
Yep.
Thanks.